Well, how's everyone doing? You know what time this is, right? It's 3 o'clock, Saturday. And I'm Bob Gumbs, and this is the Concerned Forum. And we have a very interesting guest. I mean, extremely interesting. And I'm just going to say something because it's really been bothering me, especially since about 12:30 this afternoon, because I'm taping today. It is Saturday, and this is one of the rare occasions where I'm going to tape. So hopefully you're already looking at my show. That's cool, because you're getting ready to get another one. But no, Dick, this is what really has been playing with my head. Now, you guys know that I did military time. I talk about it a lot because it meant a lot to me. You know also that I did almost 11 years in the Navy. Not talking about when I was a kid in the Army. During that 11 years, I did about 5 at the White House and the Pentagon, plus hitting CIA, NSA, you know, doing various things. You know, top secret clearance thingamajig. Well, once that gets into your system, you really don't ever get rid of it. It's like always, I was saying to my guests here, it's always looking for a puzzle. Well, I think I might have found the answer to a puzzle. And I might be embarrassing myself here, but I think I'm right. And that's one thing about me. That's about my only truly good quality. I believe in trying to do the right thing and also saying what's right, especially when it needs to be said. So I hope it doesn't hurt me in future job interviews or what have you. But this whole business, we had Comey this week just passed testifying in front of the Senate. I believe he did a very good job, by the way. And we know that the president is a liar. There's no nice way to put it. But I tell you what really is making my blood boil, and it has to do with a young lady who was a former Air Force person. So obviously she's a veteran. She was arrested and is being held for leaking. Apparently she had a job at NSA, and she came across some information that she felt the public should know. And she said she was going to unload more information, but they caught up with her. They meaning the authorities, or that part of the authorities that now are trying to hunt down leakers, which, by the way, I don't believe in people selling out their country, but I do believe that there are times when people have a more of an obligation to our Constitution than to the rules and regs. And I do believe this may be one of those times. I don't even have the young lady's name. I've just, basically heard it on news flashes. Now, they keep telling us that, well, yeah, we know for a fact the Russians were trying to get into our election. But fortunately, they weren't able to manipulate any votes. Well, I don't believe that's true. I believe that this young woman who worked at NSA stumbled upon something. And that's the information that she has been trying to get out until she was stopped. But I do believe that the Russians somehow manipulated the files. I don't know of what states, although I suspect it would be the 2 or 3 states that Hillary was supposed to have won but lost. And this isn't about trying to make Hillary look good. She was the candidate. She did not run a good campaign. She was not the monster, however, that the Trump believers, the Trump disciples, tried to make her out to be. But she had some stuff in the past, and I'm referring to back in the 90s, the mass incarceration of black and Hispanic men, those sort of things. And I don't think that she did enough to deal with that legacy. But as far as her being the villain that General Flynn tried to paint her out to be, no, that is not the case. I was an ardent, and anybody who's watched this show for any length of time knows I was an ardent Bernie Sanders supporter. But when Bernie lost the convention, and I have some big qualms about with the DNC about how he lost our convention, but that's beside the point right now. When he lost, I put my allegiance to Hillary, and I made sure I voted for her because I knew that voting for Trump would be the abyss for this country and for our standing in the rest of the world. I don't have to continually try to prove that. You can see what's going on now for yourself, the shape that he has gotten this country in. Why, just today, you have in 30 cities demonstrations against people who of the Islamic faith. He has turned his campaign into a lynch mob. And I think that that's disgraceful for a president, or even when he was running, for somebody who aspired to be president of the United States. He ran a campaign that we as Americans will have to hang our heads in shame for a century to come. It was a disgrace. He attacked people of color. He attacked the LGBT community. He even attacked handicapped people. And I tell you something, I'm a black man, okay? And for me personally, knowing Trump as I have from the time I was basically became of age, because I am a native New Yorker, and I know him and his father for the terrible human beings that they were and are. But you know something? At that one campaign stop, when he stood up and he made fun of that handicapped guy, my heart sank to my feet. In America, we got a guy who wants to be president of the United States who pokes fun at handicapped people. And I will tell you something. I honestly believe on top of the attack of LGBT people, on top of the attack of Hispanic people, on top of the attack, the things and the little cracks that he made about black American people, on top of all this, when he poked fun, I should say, at that handicapped gentleman, I believe he was a reporter. And so Trump didn't like what the guy had written about him or something of that nature. And he, instead of taking the guy to task by saying, well, he was wrong about A, B, or C, he stands up and he apes the way that the guy, he has some kind of palsy or something that causes him to shake a lot and to stutter. And he stood up and poked fun at that man and did a very ignorant imitation of the affliction that that man has. And his crowd, his people, they were like animals. You know, it must have been just like that in Rome when they threw the Christians to the lions and the spectators would laugh and shout with glee. And that's what Trump did. That's the emotion that he got out of his audience. That's why I say he never had a campaign. It was a lynch mob. It was a rolling lynch mob from one part of the country to the other. And I repeat, there will come a time, 100 years from now, and people will hold their heads in shame that we ever sunk so low as to elect a guy like Donald Trump, a guy that makes fun of handicapped people. Being partially disabled myself, I'm a partially disabled vet. My mom was disabled, she was deaf. I'm really sensitive about that sort of thing. I hope that someday Donald Trump meets his match. I hope one of these days he makes the mistake of making that handicap crack to somebody whose mother is handicapped or who might have a handicapped wife or a child. And maybe the guy that he says this to, or the lady that he says this to, might take him somewhere and teach him some manners. Well, I had to get that off my chest. And yes, I do believe what the young lady who's incarcerated said. Somehow they got together and they threw a wrench in our electoral process. And that's why Donald Trump is in the White House. I don't have any proof yet. I just have a feeling. And we'll see what happens as time goes on, because they are being investigated. But that's how I feel. Now, on a more uplifting note, I want to introduce my wonderful guest. And I had to write her last name down because I'm good sometimes. I mean, I'm not good at times with the vowels of people's last names. But Miss Alma Subasic. And I met this young lady. She had attended a service at the church that I go to, right over here at the community church on 35th Street. Wonderful people. And she was giving a lecture. And I thought it would be interesting to have her come and talk to you folks. So tell the folks a little bit about yourself, Alma.
My name is Alma Subasic, and I thank you for bringing me here today. I was born in Bosnia, and I came to the United States when I was 17 years old. I came alone with my sister because my parents couldn't leave. It was the wartime in Bosnia, towards the end of the war in '95. And I came to the United States as a refugee. And I've been living in the United States since then. It's about over 20 years now, believe it or not. And we landed in Brooklyn, New York, because my uncle was there with his wife, and they took us in for the first couple of months, and then until we got situated, my sister and I had to finish high school, last year of high school. My sister was already in college, and she managed to get a job as a secretary at a very early age. She was only 20 years old. I was 17. So, and she was helping me and supporting me. We lived alone in an apartment until I finished high school. She was a second mother to me. And then I went to college, and after college, I decided to go to law school. And so I am here today to discuss with you a little bit, as you asked me, about Islam, yes, because I'm a born Muslim. I come from Bosnia. It's a majority Muslim country. And for some of you that don't know, Bosnia is a part of, used to be part of former Yugoslavia. Right. And that fell apart in 91, 92, when Yugoslavia, in essence, fell apart, and each republic, each former republic that was part of former Yugoslavia gained its own independence. And Bosnia is a majority, as I said, it was a majority Muslim country, and I came here, and now, given the developments with the terrorism, Islam is now on the forefront of many discussions. It hurts me to hear a lot of negative things that I'm hearing about Islam, because I don't understand it to be that kind of a religion. I'm a believer. I believe in God. I've always believed in Him, and it hurts me to hear people discuss God in Islam, which is really one God for all of us and all the religions. That's what we in Islam believe.
Right.
But when I hear people discuss Him in certain terms and in derogatory terms, it hurts me. And obviously, we Muslim should, and I do agree, there we can discuss that a little bit later, but I understand that we Muslim are divided, and it feels like it and it looks like it. There are many causes for that, like in other, I would say in every other religion, but we are at the end human beings first and foremost, and I always felt that God is within us, and if we search deep and hard enough, we will find that truth for ourselves. And now conflating religion of Islam with, I shouldn't say, with hatred, with violence, with sort of idea that it advocates violence. Islam is a religion that it advocates violence. And people would say to me, well, you can see it yourself, can you not? Everybody that's attacking innocent people today, all of those people tend to be, for the most part, Muslim. And they say that they are, very openly.
Right.
So that's where we are today. For me also, as a result of what's happening in the world today, all around the world, when it comes to Islam, I decided to really spend some time reading about it, looking to understand where the causes of this are, what really happened to Islam as a religion, how did we get here. And as a result of all of that search, I joined a group. It's a non-profit organization with a gentleman who's a professor of physics at Stony Brook University. And he wrote a book on Islam, and he called it The Quran and the Life of Excellence. The Quran, the book that's now in a lot of people's minds as a book that advocates violence, he wrote a book where he is using actual words of God, where we come together at our meeting, which is our meeting actually takes place at the church where you actually met me for the first time. And we meet there every other Monday. And we sit in a circle and we discuss certain sayings from the Quran. And we sit around and we talk about it. We talk about what it really means to us. What does this say? In essence, what we are doing is we are using God's book and we are reinterpreting it the way we understand it. Not based on what some Islamic scholar told us we should think. We are thinking for ourselves. We're using actual reading what God said, and we are uplifting our spirits and our lives. And I've seen many, not many, I shouldn't say many, but I've seen people who converted to Islam with the help of this book. A lot of converts come to our meetings, and they're looking to understand and gain a better understanding, obviously, of the religion itself. And they're looking for some alternative ways because they too are perplexed. Converts especially are perplexed by what they see that's happening with Islam today, and the religion that they decided to convert into as a result of their own reading and as a result of whatever their own heart was telling them.
What's the name of that book?
The Quran and the Life of Excellence. It should be on Amazon, available on Amazon.
Oh, okay. So your group meets right over here at my church then?
Yeah.
Is this during the week you guys meet, right?
Every other Monday. So this coming Monday we're meeting, yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Can anybody join?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's open to everybody.
Okay, that's Community Church, and that's between Park and Madison on 35th Street, and you have no problem finding it. And our church, we throw open our doors to everyone. You have a lot of different groups. I'm the co-chair of the anti-racism committee, for that matter. And the veterans groups meet there, and everybody. But that's, comes of being a universal Unitarian church, because we basically have the philosophy that we're all of God. Other denominations, they're just fine. But that's how, generally speaking, that's what Unitarians are about, that the job is to find our spirituality by how we work and deal with our fellow human being. So drop by sometimes. You might find it very interesting. One of the problems, as I think of it, that we have in America is that we are not a historical people. In other words, most Americans are not that well versed in history. I mean, Americans, generally speaking, are not too well versed on their own history. You have a whole bunch of people out there. Let me assure you, no exaggeration, that if you ask them who the first president was, they can't tell you. Okay? If they ask you where did the Star-Spangled Banner come from, they couldn't tell you. So if you don't know your own history, then naturally you're going to have a problem dealing with other people. And I've made that point when I was in the Navy, and when I first started going over to Islamic countries. But one of the problems is that, I bumped our table here. One of our problems in America, and I'll be careful with you as I say this, we've had such a history of racism here in America.
I can see it. I can see the effects of it.
Yeah. Our enemies have always been, usually, with the exception of World Wars I and II, and only halfway in World War II. You understand what I mean by that. Our enemies have always been, I should say usually, some dark person, Native American, the indigenous people, or watch out for those African slaves because they might get angry and escape and cause a rebellion. And then, of course, the yellow peril, the fear of Chinese and Japanese immigration. So America, and then, of course, World War II, we fought Germany on one part of the world. The other part, we were fighting Japanese people. And ironically, the unit that got the most medals for courageous fighting was a unit, the 442 Regimental Combat Team, made up of who? Japanese Americans. And we still don't get it, unfortunately, many of us. But now you tell me if I'm wrong, but before this period of time, Turkey ruled over what we call Bosnia and Serbia. Am I correct?
During the Ottoman Empire.
Right, the Ottoman Empire. And then that collapsed at the end of World War I.
1917, around that time, yes.
Right. So most Americans, most white Americans, don't understand that all Muslims do not look like me or a few shades lighter than me, okay? A lot of Americans, they look like you if you're a white person, okay? So this whole idea that Donald Trump has been really responsible for putting out, beware of the dark-skinned people with, I always get the various, I've been there, and I still get it mixed up, the headdress.
The veil or the burqas? It's a complete covering, the burqas?
Some just have it, but you can see the whole face.
No. It's just a veil.
Just a veil, right? Beware of the person, the dark-skinned women with the veil, And like I said, you go to Eastern Europe, and you have people with blonde hair, and blue eyes who are Muslim. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you've heard of him, Malcolm X.
Of course.
Okay.
I read a book about him.
Right. Well, the part in his life where he came to realize that just because someone was Caucasian or white, that didn't mean that they were bad. He learned that really after he
Went to Mecca.
There you go.
Yeah.
And he said in the book that he sat with the people of the blondness of hair, the bluest of eyes, the whitest of skin, and he felt that he was with brothers. Yeah. And I think that that's something that we really need to really think about. Tell me something. How? Another thing I'm curious about, the idea of women in Islam, because I've tried to tell people that that's really more of a cultural thing depending upon what country you're in.
Correct.
You know, because I said I saw one thing when I was in Saudi Arabia,